the end of the day, not only did the economy become the big narrative of the election, but immigration was the big narrative of the election. The idea that immigrants are taking our jobs, that they're the problem, that once we can do mass deportations, suddenly everything's going to get better, when it's completely the opposite. And, you know, oh God, things will get more expensive with mass deportations, speaking of the economy, to say nothing of, you know, families being ripped apart and mistreated. But we didn't see a counter narrative from the Democrats, and we have not seen a counter narrative from the Democrats in decades on immigration. And Erica, I feel that's the only way we are going to actually beat the right on this issue, is humanizing immigrants, is listening to them, is like, you know, saying amnesty is good, legalization is good. Like, these are all good things. They shore up the economy, they shore up the base. We should legalize people. They're already paying into things like Medicare and Social Security. They've like all of these things, but the media doesn't do it and Democrats don't do it. But, you know, so how can we build this truth? How can the truth really get out? When you have the dogs, the cats, you know, the Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment buildings. I mean, it's just sick.
Yeah. Listen, and this should have been done a really long time ago. One of the things that really it was really depressing to me when I was doing phone banking. I was trying my best to get this guy to not be elected. So I was doing some phone banking in Spanish with community members. And one thing that came up over and over and over again was this comment from people who were actually either like they didn't know who to vote for, or they were going to vote for Trump, even Spanish speakers, Latinos, that were telling me, well, Democrats haven't done anything. They have been promising immigration reform for decades, and they haven't even done it. So why am I even going to?
Yes.
Right. And I couldn't, you know,
what do you say to that?
What do you say to that? And so to me, my hope is that as things develop and as things happen, they're going to be really ugly. They're going to be horrible. And that we don't have a Democratic Party that's out there trying to go more and more to the right, but rather that they actually humanize our communities. And that, yeah, like you said, that they go back to not just, I mean, yes, they're going to have to promise immigration reform. They're going to have to talk about citizenship for people. But if they were to gain power again, we're going to have to see actions, or otherwise, listen, Latinos it's a growing population of voters. And I really, really don't want our community to continue to go to the right. I really don't.
Yeah. And I mean, like, one thing we haven't really named, but I you know, I think we have to be careful with how we word this, because I believe I've even been like facile in how I've talked about it, but you know, immigration in this country, and it has a lot to do with whiteness and who is recognized as becoming white. And often you can throw down with the right-wing elements in your country, and that sort of allows you to enter into whiteness. And part of that is being anti-Black, to be frank. Like, part of that is continually, and I know this, you know, in the Asian American community it exists, in the Arab American community, all community, you know, in the Hispanic, Latino community it exists. That has to be also named, not as a way to, I mean, there's some terrible takes out there where people are like, you know, F these Latino, like people are really going negative, and it's just like, that's not what we need. But we also have to, you know, understand that, yeah, this is also it is part of the history of this country, is to climb the ladder and cut it out from underneath you and kind of earn your whiteness. And again, through, hitting the most vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that people don't have to suffer personally to change their mindset about the way we should embrace our neighbors in this country. I think that people's goal of proximity to whiteness is a goal that will never be achieved because they will constantly move the goal line.
Right.
They're never going to give you a seat at the table because they didn't even want you to know that the table existed. So we're fighting over scraps, and I want us to stop fighting over scraps, because as long as we fight over scraps, we will be just distracted from the real problem at hand. And the real problem at hand is that our basic necessities are going to be impeded upon, and we're going to have to pay a higher price for everything. And we're going to see people being dragged out of schools and dragged out of hospitals and be banned from services because of the country that their mother came from. And
Right.
it's not going to stop. It's kind of, I mean, I hate to say it, it's kind of really messed up, but it proved as a Black person, it proved that what we've been saying has been right all along, right? Is that they want to control the people that are not like them. That is
Yes.
that's the line in the sand. And they get everybody else to jump on this platform because they mask it behind religious rights or anti-gay this and anti-immigration this, but it's really about population control and maintaining a majority in this nation. And it's always been that, which is why they are anti-abortion, but they'll let Black women die on the birthing table, knowing that we have the highest mortality rate in natural childbirth in a first world country. So when we say these things, it's like, oh, it can't be that. But yes, it really is truly that nefarious, deep-rooted, and racist. And so now that we know that is the underlying current for all the policy that has been pushed through for the last couple of decades, let's step back and say, let's not keep falling for the trap. Let's call a thing a thing. The emperor has no clothes, and we're not going to dance to this flute no more. And let's demand actual real change and say, these are the things that the people need, and stop giving our power to people who are just going to charge us for us. Like, give us something for our money or get out the way.
I mean, the Latino vote is an amazing example of that. I mean, Erica, it hadn't even occurred to me because, I'm trying to hold the idea that you would sell out your like family members or, friends who are undocumented for a piece of the, a little bit better and doing better in the economy. But it's absolutely true that, well, if Democrats haven't delivered for you on immigration reform, then the need for solidarity is just kind of like, well, that's a done deal because they've given up on it, well, I might as well just look out for me and mine, just me. And, forget about it and this is the right wing framing of immigration. And the Democrats have allowed the issue to be framed by the right and say, yeah, it's true. If we did offer amnesty or pathway to citizenship, we are doing great replacement theory. Are you kidding me? And it's amazing because ironically, they are proving that actually Latinos don't break necessarily for Democrats because of their abdication to appeal to the Latino community. Like, do you see what you just did? You just proved that actually when Latinos do have citizenship, and they're voting, on their, whatever, like their values or whatever they see, they're not necessarily going to vote for Democrats. That you still have to do something. I don't know if I'm explaining this, but
no,
it's just
you're completely right. And I also think that that's a message to also Democrats, right? And one of the things that I do, oh God, when I was in the Bernie campaign and being in sort of around the Democratic Party, I saw how little investment there was to try to bring Latinos in, to try to do the outreach that was needed year round, every year, to communities of color, right? They honestly, in my view, for many years, what I would tell a lot of people in the Democratic Party is that they would take for granted Latinos and the Black community, right? It was like, they were gonna vote for us anyway.
Yeah.
Like, why do we even bother, right? And so this is a wake-up call to the Democratic Party that if we're not doing the outreach, if we're not doing the work to ensure that we're bringing along the Latino community. Look, folks, some folks come from countries that are more conservative, or people who are leaving Cuba or Venezuela, or folks who, a lot of people who are leaving because they're afraid of communism, right? As they usually say. Other people who are here, they're very Catholic. Some of them are very Christian or evangelical. I know I talked to a lot of folks that were voting for Trump because they were evangelical. So there's so many people in our community. It's not a monolith. I know everybody says that,
of course.
But now that we have seen the consequences and the fact that more and more of our people are deciding to go to the right, this is where Democrats have to figure out, how do we bring people back? Now, last thing I'll say, and I'm talking too much, but is that as organizers and as activists, I think this is one thing I'm reflecting on, is that we also have to learn our own lesson, that we have to bring people in. We have to create a bigger coalition, and we're going to have to call people in. And honestly, I think that as someone who understands our society, or I think I understand, I know there's a lot of colorism, there's racism, there's everything that you can think of in the Latino community as well.
Yeah.
And I also believe that if you go to communities and you start just calling them racist, and you start calling them this or that, and blaming them and pointing the finger and saying, you suck, go to Trump, we're just losing more people, right? And so let's try to hold the truth that we know, and at the same time, let's try to bring people in by inviting them, and then people will eventually understand what we are, that we can't really fall into that trap of whiteness as a community.
Yeah. Yeah, and that takes a lot of strength and patience, and yes, organizing, but also, when we, just like in union organizing, or, or any other campaign, you are able to, fight for a common goal. And so we need that common goal that we fight toward, the constructiveness. What are we generating? My question, because I'm very still on the fence, I said this earlier about the Democratic Party. I'm cool on them for a while. Like, I don't know, 4 years, who knows?
Yeah.
But
they have to do a lot. They have to do a lot.
So much has to be. But I wanted to ask you, Erica, because, it's like 0 to 10 faith in the Democratic Party. Where are you at right now?
Oh my God. I mean, the election is just over, so don't take my word for the rest of the year. But right now, it's pretty low.
Yeah,
it's pretty low. Yeah. And listen, I also, I'm scrolling through Twitter and all social media platforms, and I'm also kind of cringing when I see everybody pointing fingers at each other. But
yeah,
I do think that we have to learn lessons, and we have to step back and think about what we did wrong, what we need to do right, and yeah, so it's pretty low.
I also think it's like, who are we? And honestly, it wasn't up to you, it wasn't up to me, it wasn't up to Chloe, and you did what you could, and you like everyone, was in their corner. People who listen to this show hate me because I was like, Jill Stein ain't it, in addition to other third parties, like, you guys know who you are, and you weren't born outright. I'm sorry. But it was all out of our hands, and we kind of knew that. We got 2016 vibes early on in this Harris campaign. I mean, again, what was left of the Biden campaign to resuscitate, it's all this old man's fault for not having stepped down way earlier, and not having had an open primary and whatnot. But so yes, we are back to where we were, but we're not brand new. Like, we're not brand new to this. We're not brand new to Trumpism, and we're not brand new to Democratic failure. So that is comforting, at least. Erica and Yola, where can people find you, follow your work, but also what do you encourage people to do, especially if they want to support immigrant organizations, immigrant-led organizations, defense groups, like, what do you suggest people do?
Yeah. Well, people can always find me on social media. I share a lot of information, and also calls to action from the organization that I work with, which is the Young Center, but also from different organizations and groups across the country who do immigrant rights work. It's just Erica Andiola in all my platforms. But I will say that we are going to need you. We are going to need every person who cares about the humanity and the well-being of the immigrant community to step up for the next 4 years. We're going to have a lot of deportation defense work. We're going to have to protect our neighbors, give people information about their rights, ensuring that they know that they have rights, even if they're immigrants, and donate to organizations that are doing work on the ground. It's important right now, especially, I'll say, with the Young Center, the organization that I work with, we work with unaccompanied immigrant children. This is an organization that was in the front lines when Trump was separating kids in 2018 and beyond. And we are very worried about our contracts, because part of the work that we do is funded by the government, just as many other organizations that provide legal services and services to the immigrant community. And this is the moment where we're going to have a lot of the support from our people who care.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do it.